Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SkateProud chats. I'm so excited to be here today. We're going to be talking with another fellow ice dancer, Ray Parsons. I'm so excited for this chat today. We're going to have a lot of fun. So let's just wait for her to join. Hope you've all been doing well. Oh, and I have a request. Oh. Okay, I think Rachel has entered the chat. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, for a little introduction, those of you who don't know, you are a junior world champion, junior Grand Prix final gold medalist, lots of other accomplishments, long list. You've been on Team USA forever. I looked up to you skating for years. So, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really, really good.
Good. I thought we'd start how we've been starting a lot of the chats, just a little getting to know you. How did you get started in skating?
I started skating when I was 5 or 6 years old. My mom had skated when she was a kid, and it was something that she wanted me and my siblings to know how to do. So she put us all out on the ice at a pretty young age, and it just clicked. I kind of fell in love with it, and my brother did too. And 10 years later, we were on Team USA as partners, traveling the world and competing, and it really just took off.
Yeah, that works out nicely that you both stuck to it.
Yeah.
I started skating, I think when I started, my brothers also came to the rink with me, but they were not having it. So had to search for another partner. Okay, and do you have a favorite skating memory?
I think probably winning Junior Worlds. I think that was the high point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so you came out last year, and I was wondering if you wanted to tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so I didn't come out until after I had retired from competing. And I think, if I'm being honest with myself, it was a part of me that I had denied for a really long time. Um, I think being a figure skater, you have these certain standards that you're supposed to meet, especially as a woman in the sport, where you're supposed to be really petite and you're supposed to be really feminine and you're supposed to fit this ideal mold of what a figure skater should be. And gay didn't seem to fit in to that mold. So it's something that I never really let myself explore. But after I retired, I did a lot of soul searching because for a long time my identity had been so closely tied in with being a figure skater that when I took that away, I had a little bit of an identity crisis. I was like, what do I do now? And having that freedom to really explore my sexuality and figure out what else made me happy was really important for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I maybe want to talk a little bit more because even though you maybe didn't come out until after competing, I think you still experienced this stifling of yourself within skating. And so I was wondering if you'd want to speak to how maybe it's uniquely to be a woman in skating who is queer.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like the stereotype is that skating is such a gay sport, but that really, that stereotype applies more to the men. And as a skater, I was always really self-conscious that I wasn't moving feminine enough. I was told that I wasn't moving in a feminine enough way, even though I was just moving the way I do. So I don't know, I think that for skating being such a stereotypically gay sport, it's really not particularly welcoming for queer ladies.
Yeah, and I also got the too masculine comments throughout my career, even before I even realized maybe that might have anything to do with queerness. It was
Yeah,
just,
totally. Me too.
yeah, it was just something that I think other people maybe picked up on before I did, which is hard because then it still further prevents you from exploring that side of yourself, I
Yeah.
think. Um, and I think also something that's hard is it can feel, because it's known as like a gay man sport, it can feel very isolating. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't know any queer women when I was skating. I mean, I think it's cool now because I think we've both discovered that there is a community of us out there,
Yeah.
but it's tough um, because I don't think it was visible
It
when we
was
were.
totally not visible, and I wish that I'd come out when I was still competing, because then I feel like there would have been, more, we could have had that community, like, while we were both still in the sport, and like leaned on each other and talked to each other about the unique, like, struggles of being a gay female figure skater. um
Mm-hmm.
but
But we have it now, so now
yeah,
it's what matters. And I know for me, it meant a lot to me seeing, I think, like we retired about the same time. Um, and you stepped away in large part because of an eating disorder, which is something I struggled with for a very long time in my career. But you stepped away and talked about that and really made like a vocal statement about that's what you were going through. And then you also came out, and I know I gained a lot from just like realizing that you were there. And I was like, oh my gosh, here's this person who has experienced like all the things I have.
yeah. I struggled with an eating disorder for probably 10 years, or maybe a little less, since I was 13,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much. And I think skating culture has really drilled into young skaters the fact that you're supposed to just, put your head down and keep working and not ask for help when you're struggling, because it'll make you look weak, or it'll make you, look lazy, or whatever the connotation is there. And I it took me years and years to realize that I really was not in a good place, and it wasn't just me being strong and pushing through and, getting over it. It was something that I needed to address, and I couldn't do that while I was still competing, because I still had that pressure to
Mm-hmm.
be smaller and thinner. And I don't know, I think skating puts really a lot of pressure on girls from a young age to maintain that, super slim silhouette, that we see so often. And there's just not a lot of talk about the effect that has on young people, like as they're growing up, told, no, you're too big, this isn't going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, something that stuck out with me that you just said, I might cry on this phone call. I've got a lot of emotions going on right now. um, but something that stuck out to me was the fact, like, this fear of being called lazy, because I do, here, I'm having weird things on my end. I'm just gonna try to move this. Um, because I think there is this sort of like value system in skating put in place where like you are seen as dedicated if you are small, and you are seen as lazy if you're bigger.
Yeah, because God forbid you're not naturally a stick, which is like fine, but some of us are not meant to be that skinny. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like something really interesting that's happened to me, I think like over maybe the last year, which it's sad that it's like taken this long, but I've been out of competitive skating and I've seen my body change outside of that scope. And something that I've realized is like I know my body better than anybody, and I am my most fit like when I am bigger. Like when I'm not working out, I'm actually like a bit smaller than like when I'm in top shape.
it,
And so it's just this thing of like equating the smaller to like more fit, more dedicated.
more beautiful, like it's just not. Yeah, same, like since I've stepped back from competing, I've been able to, get to my natural body weight without restricting and going to crazy lengths to try and stay thinner. Um, and I honestly have never been like more happy or more confident in myself than I am right now. And I never thought that I would ever be okay if I gained weight, but I quit skating. I gained like 30 pounds and I'm super happy. I've got little stretch marks where
Yeah. Oh, that makes me happy. Oh, now I'm gonna cry happy. Because it's so hard. And I think like something that I still hear that drives me nuts is I'll hear skaters say like to a certain degree in skating to be like you have to have a certain amount like you have being a certain weight helps.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's true.
That's something I still struggle with because the highest points of my career were coincidentally when I was at my lowest weight, and I was getting really good feedback from my coaches and from
Mm-hmm.
judges saying, "Oh, you look great. Whatever you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, keep doing it." And that was the validation I needed. So I don't actually know if I don't know if I had gotten help sooner when I realized I was starting to turn to unhealthy ways, and if I had maybe not been quite so skinny, but been, compensated for that with confidence and,
Yeah,
like being comfortable in my own skin, maybe I would have been a better skater. Maybe I'd still be competing. I really don't know.
yeah. And I would just love to see that like in the next few years challenged. Because I think the reality is like a lot of times we don't let bigger skaters exist. Like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where if we make
Yeah,
every single person feel like they have to be so small, and we all know that, it's like nobody even needs to say it.
yeah,
It's
it's just part of the culture.
mm-hmm. And so it's like we don't even let anybody bigger exist. So of course you don't have like big people competing
Yeah,
because it's not possible in the way the sport is built right now.
yeah, and we forget sometimes that like we're athletes. Like we should be allowed to have muscle and like look strong and I don't know.
If you look at like a soccer team, if you look at like a basketball, like if you look at so many other sports, like you see women who are fit who don't have the bodies that like we're told we have to have if we're fit in skating.
I was always so jealous of the hockey players at our rink, the female hockey players. They could put pads on and no one cared what they looked like. They could, they could look however they looked, and no one questioned their athletic ability based on like their size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's tough. And I think it's particularly tough. Like, I don't know if this speaks to your experience. Maybe this is just an open ended question, but I feel like in circles of queer women I know now, and then in circles of figure skating, like body image issues are like the meeting of that circle.
Yep. Yep.
Because both worlds, like, you face a lot of restraint as a woman. As a queer woman, I think for years, a lot of us spend trying to like restrain our like desire, romantic desire, and sexual desire, and whatever you want to call that. And then in skating, we're taught to restrain like everything around our training.
Yep.
And so, like, we kind of got hit with like bad odds.
Yes, we really, really did. We set ourselves up.
But I would love to see that change. And I think, like, what do you think are some steps you could take in skating to make that a space that is not so built around restraint?
I think a big part of that is just opening up a conversation about these types of things because I feel like there are so many taboo subjects that like you're just not supposed to talk about, like when you need help, when you're struggling, um, eating disorders, abuse. There's so many like ugly sides to this sport. And I love figure skating. I love it. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically been my entire life. So I'm not trying to trash talk the sport, but there are
Absolutely.
definitely ways that we can improve. And I think a lot of that is just, talking about some of these issues and not sweeping them under the rug and pretending like, oh, it's just a few outliers. Because like there are some things that like when I came out and said that I was going to take a step back from skating due to the eating disorder, I had so many people reach out to me and say, hey, thank you so much for like saying something because people don't talk about this and like I'm having the same problem. Like and just like knowing that there are other people out there and you're not alone just dealing with the same things, and that applies to pretty much anything. um yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think just like having those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is surrounded by a lot of silence. And I think what's kind of, I mean, fascinating is so the wrong word, but like, I know in like my circles in the skating world and like among my friends, it's almost rarer to find somebody who has not struggled with disordered eating.
Yep.
Almost, almost all of my friends in this sport have had an eating disorder at some point or have had severely disordered eating
Yeah, or
or
issues, or because we're under such scrutiny from such a young age, and you get out there in your skin tight mesh dress, and like there are no secrets. Everyone knows what you look like. Everyone is like, the sport is literally based upon judging you, so of course people are going to judge you.
mm-hmm. So I think you're right in that like addressing this dialogue from a place of not like it's not an individual thing, but like this is a very broad conversation
Yeah,
that
and if kind of safe space that people can come and like talk about it. I don't know. I feel
mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's so much broader than I think even people who know about like and I mean I think I'm very inspired. You've been very open. Like we've seen Gracie who's been very open. You saw Yulia step away and say like this is why. Um, and so I think there are these women who are being very brave and starting these conversations. Um, and I think it's a matter of like this is just the top layer. Like these women coming forward, you
yeah.
guys are speaking up for a lot of people, a lot of other people.
I'm gonna cry now too.
Oh, sorry. I'm like my emotions right now. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this call. I know what we're talking about, and I'm feeling a lot of things lately. Um, but
Even a step forward from there, I feel like maybe in another universe, if I'd been able to come out and say, okay, I'm struggling with an eating disorder, I need to take a step back. If I had been able to, I don't know, take a break, go through recovery, and then come back. But I think there's this mentality that if what like once you gain weight, you're done. Which is why Gracie really like been inspiration, because she, kind of went through her process, and then she, was coming back. Um,
mm-hmm,
which I don't know. I had it in my mind that once I gained some weight, then no one would ever see me as like able to be competitive again. So
mm-hmm,
I don't know. I think that figure skating has lost a lot of really talented skaters because of eating disorders that it didn't have to lose, because we can't give girls or boys like the space or the time to like work through these things.
mm-hmm. And we don't offer the resources, I think. Um, and I think it's something that has to go beyond. Like, obviously, this is a major problem among female athletes. It is a problem among male athletes, too. And I think there are some stigmas that, like, don't get addressed properly in that sphere, too. But I think the resources have to, like, one, there needs to be resources available to all of us while we're competing.
Yep.
And two, I think it needs to extend beyond just the athletes because I think it's it's not the athlete's problem. Like at the end of the day, it's like the problem of the world that makes athletes feel this way.
Yeah, it's
Which,
everything. It's the whole environment.
yeah. So like I would love to see coaches and judges taking more of an initiative.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be on the skaters.
Yep.
Um,
Agree with that.
because also a lot of times when this is happening, like you entered the international like sphere very young.
Yeah.
Um, and I was a bit lucky in that I think like I got into dance late, peaked a little late, and so when that pressure was on me, I was a little bit older. But when you are being watched by that many people as a 13-year-old, that is a lot of pressure to put on a child.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And especially like at that young age when you go to a costume fitting for your new skating dress and 90% of that fitting is talking about how to make you look smaller with the dress, or oh no, that's not flattering, oh like that, no, you can't do that with the dress, that'll make this look big. Like, I don't know, it's definitely
You're giving me like trauma flashbacks. No,
I'm sorry, but yeah, like we don't talk about this stuff, and I'm sure that many girls are like going through the same thing. Like your dress should make you feel pretty, it doesn't have to make your ass look smaller. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on here, but
right. You can say whatever you want. This is this is our space.
but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I do kind of want to swear about it. And the costume fitting, like, I remember my seamstress, lovely woman, so sweet, saved my life probably a number of times. But like when she was around certain coaches with me, like she would make comments out loud, like, "Oh, I've taken it in," just to try to like
Yep.
help me out, like in those like make it seem like I was doing the right thing.
Yep.
Like
Yep. And
the
doing the
athlete.
right thing means, getting smaller, however you may or may not have been doing. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And like honestly, this seamstress would straight up lie. Like I wasn't any smaller. She would just say it to
We're
like,
taking it in. We're taking it in. She's smaller.
yeah, just because she thought it would make my life easier.
Yeah. And I'm sure it made you super happy in that moment. You were like, yes, like, thank you so much. Which is insane.
Mean, I was
like,
lucky in that also. I think especially my very last season competing, which like I've talked about this a little bit, but Joe and I were kind of like, we're doing what we want this season. And I was in school a lot, so I was very busy, and I think my brain was not 100% in like, I'm gonna win a medal. It was like, this season's about us, and like we're gonna do the best we can. We have no money, so we're just gonna like make it work and be ourselves. And that season, like I went in with the attitude of like, if somebody calls me fat, good, because like that means I'm doing the thing with a body that they don't think I can.
and that was a great season. You guys, your programs that year were phenomenal.
Thank you. Which shows you not listening to people sometimes the way to go. But I went in with that attitude, and I think I was in like one of the healthier spaces I've ever been in when I was competing. But still, like then we skated very well, and like I felt generally good about myself, and our programs got like a lot of views on the internet. And then like when I saw the comments that were like, which the internet is like another conversation we could have, but like
I don't even want to get into like the Golden Skate forums and like the YouTube comments. Like, I used to
and
like.
you'll know we read those.
We do. I would go after competitions and I would literally read all the YouTube comments and I would translate the ones that were in, Russian or French, and I would cry. I would literally just sob and be like, this random person that's from God knows where thinks I'm fat. Like, my world is over.
Yeah.
Like, how does that make sense?
And I don't know if it's like a little bit like, yes, we could just not go on, but like it's hard. It's hard not to look.
Hard not to look. It's really
and
hard. It's like watching a car crash. Like, you want to know. Like,
and I think in this sport where like a lot of women are raised to have these sort of like self-harm impulses, we're gonna go seek out those. Like,
yeah.
So even when I was at my mentally healthiest ever in competing, it was still like, this is still something that like when I think about the comments people like have said about me, I'm in a very healthy place, and like that still gets to me. So also fans out there, just like be nice.
Please. Like, for people, we're doing our best. By all means, like, if you have opinions on our programs, our costumes, whatever, but don't comment on girls' weight. Don't comment on boys' weight.
Mm-hmm.
We're just where we are, so leave us alone.
Yeah, and I know you think like we won't see it, but skating world is small, and like
we'll see it, or our coaches will see it, or our family and friends will. It'll come back to us.
things get back to us. So just that's a PSA for everybody who talks about skaters on the internet. Oh, okay, this has been an emotional call. But it's good.
It is good.
Thank you so much for like doing this with me, and
Yeah, of course.
I know it's been like a lot, so but we're getting into it. Last question, I think, for now, because I think this is an ongoing conversation. We'll take some like questions from people too if you guys want to ask. But like it within the skating world, if you could see like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like what are things you absolutely want to see happen?
I think that I definitely want to see kind of more acceptance of, more athletic body types that aren't so, skinny. I mean, nothing wrong with being skinny, but for those of us that aren't naturally like that, it's really hard. And I would also like to see a lot more representation, um, girls and guys of different sexualities being, confident and able to be who they truly are, different races, because skating is such a whitewashed sport. I think we have really far to go in terms of diversity kind of across the board.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in like every like side of the word diversity, like skating's got some things to address for sure. So I think, yeah. And I think we've got to address the systems that are keeping it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to scroll. I'm going to see what questions I could find. Oh, this is a good one. What would you tell young girls in our community who are maybe scared to come out?
I would say you shouldn't feel any pressure either way. Like when you're not ready to come out, you shouldn't feel like you have to be more valid, because you're valid whether you're in the closet, out of the closet, anywhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
But just know that you're not the only one. You're not alone. You have people. I mean, you can always reach out into my DMs on Instagram, and I will try to get back. Like if you ever need someone to talk to, because I know it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you will be. Or at least I was so much happier when I was able to be fully myself, and I think that you probably will be too.
Oh, that's great advice. Okay, I'm going to scroll because I know I saw another one. What kind of resources have you found to help you unlearn some of the messages that have been fed to you by skating coaches, fans, etc.?
So I immediately, when I decided to step back from skating, I went to therapy, I went to recovery. So I was talking with someone who was trying to help me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of everything that I've basically taught myself about body image and, confidence and all that. Other than that, in terms of resources, I think probably just, I don't know, looking online, following people on Instagram. I unfollowed all of my fitness weight loss accounts that I was following when I was figure skating. And, started more like body positive accounts, and really tried to kind of reinforce the fact that I didn't need to be a certain size to be able to feel beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think therapy, fantastic, highly recommend. There was a point in my career in which I didn't really have access, and I knew I needed to address some things. But also, like, it was this place where I felt like I couldn't get better and, like, keep skating, or, like, I couldn't formally address it and keep skating.
Yeah.
And I was 16, and, like, I didn't want my parents telling me I had to quit to, like, get my health in check. And also there were some like other barriers to like accessing resources, which I got later in my life. But at that point in time, when there were those barriers, something that really helped me was like reading about why systems are set up to make women feel this way, and people in general, women and queer people, and like learning that it's not necessarily an individual failing, but like that there is a world built to sort of make you feel this way.
Yeah, for sure.
So like I would highly recommend researching like fat activists and like the health at any size movement. And I'm like blanking on, like I follow so many of these things and now I'm blanking on them. But I think that's a good place to start if you have some like barriers to accessing professional help.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, we have another question. What should you do about homophobic coaches? What if I have a coach and you tell him that you're LGBTQ?
Okay, so definitely a tricky situation. I know it's really easy for someone on the outside to say, oh, just find a new coach, but I know it's not always that simple. I think if you can't change your coaching situation and you know you're not going to be able to change your coach's way of thinking, just make sure you have a good support system that you can come home to where you feel loved and appreciated for who you are, and just know that you're valid and important just the way you are, and you don't have to change because your coach is homophobic. Your coach is the one that has the problem, not you.
Yeah. And also, like, maybe don't come out to that one person. Like, you don't owe them that much of yourself if you feel like they're not going to respect it. So if you need to set up like a boundary and say that this person doesn't get to see the whole of me, I think that's an okay thing to do too.
Yeah, and that's their loss.
I just want to touch really quick on like the you can't get new coaches, because I think this is something that, and it applies to coaches and judges and officials and everything, where like I think it can be easy to say with like abuse dynamics, like just leave, just like go somewhere else.
Yeah, but it's just not that. It's not that simple.
One, skating world is small. Like I don't know how many ice dance coaches are there out there. Like maybe 10, like at the elite level.
Or like the hubs, the schools that are turning out good skaters are limited.
So I think it's really something that we have to address more deeply than I think, like, oh, just like move to somebody better, or move somewhere better, or because like it's like the whole culture of skating. So just like you're not gonna. It's something that needs to be addressed everywhere. It's not a matter of like finding the good ones and like going there. It's like everybody in skating has to reckon with this.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier something about educating like coaches more on how to be supportive while being an effective coach, because you don't have to be tearing your students down to make them better.
And like I'm not on here to talk shit about coach. Like I have so many coaches who did like so much for me.
Yeah,
like,
and I love my coaches. They're like basically my parents.
Yeah. So I think it's this matter of like a lot of times in situations that are like difficult, and that are, I don't want to, toxic is such like a buzzword, but like it's not like it's bad people. And I think maybe we need to like move away from like, oh, like bad people like make you feel like you need to starve, or like bad people.
It's just like, the culture of the sport.
And everybody has to work on that. And I mean, it's something like I've had to work on in myself. Like I believed that the skaters who were very thin were the most dedicated, and I had to like work to stop believing that. Yeah. So I think it's not a matter of like punishing people who create that culture. It's a matter of like educating everyone to stop that.
Yeah.
And that applies to homophobia too. Because we see a lot of that in the skating world. It's everywhere.
I know.
Okay, thanks so much. I don't see any more questions. But if there's anything else you want to add right now, feel free to share.
Let's see. I guess as kind of a final thought, I just want to remind anyone who might see this that like it might feel like skating is your whole entire world and everything revolves around it, but there is a whole another world outside of the sport that, like, for all means, skate for as long as it makes you happy. But if it's not making you happy, just know that there are other things you can do. Like, I retired, I've gone back to school, I moved to Florida, I'm learning how to surf, I've been hiking, I've been backpacking. I'm going to try and through hike the Appalachian Trail next year. Like, there are so many fun, exciting things that you can do that aren't skating. And a reminder that your life isn't over if you decide to quit or you need to retire for some reason. Like, life goes on.
Mm-hmm. It's so much bigger than like whatever your next competition is.
Yeah.
And I wish I could tell myself that, like, I don't even remember a lot of my competitions, which is just a little sad.
No, they blur together. They totally.
Yeah. So you're gonna remember skating, and it's gonna give you so many good moments. But like, don't beat yourself up because it's not the end of the world. Okay, quick selfish question before you go. The Appalachian Trail. So I know you've hiked pieces of it.
Yeah.
What's it been like?
It's really incredible. So I was actually trying to through hike it this summer, but I only made it through the state of Georgia before the ATC, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, emailed us all and asked us to postpone our through hikes because of the COVID situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get off trail, but I was planning on hiking all summer. It's about a 5-month trip through the woods, and it's really fun.
That is so cool. I like how you say only through the state of Georgia. Like, that's not farther than I've ever my entire life.
I mean, it's really fun to just do pieces of it, but the through hiking community is really cool. You meet some really amazing people out in the woods.
Yeah, I'm like personally fascinated by it. I've read a lot of like books about people who like long distance trail hike. But also I'm like not outdoorsy at all, so I just like to live vicariously through it.
But when I do it, I will document it through Instagram. So
yes, please. I'm gonna be like fully following that.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much for talking with us today. It was a good one.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.